Hello game devs, in this tutorial we are going to learn how to make an interactive object in our game. So let's start. At first let's take a look at this scene that we have here. Here we have some Halloween pumpkins or some lights, some trees and etc. We are going to make these pumpkins interactive, and when we are near of one of them and we are looking at them, we will be able to interact with them with the interact button or anything we want, and they have to invoke a function that we tell them. I created a really simple character controller, and we are controlling our player with this script. You can download this script and all the projects in the GitHub that I put the link in the description. And now let's start to create our interactive objects. We have to create a script that make our object interactive. For example, I want to create a script for this object. We can call this script interactive. In this interactive script, we have to define what we are going to do when we are interact with our objects. So we need a public unity event. So we can say event, and we can call it onInteract. And I want to show you something in the inspector. And as you see here, we have an onInteract event, and we can add some function to this event, and then when we interact with this object, this function will be invoked. Now we know what we are going to do when someone interacts with us. But how we know someone is interacting with our object? We are going to use a physics.overlap. So in the update function, we are going to use overlap sphere, and then we have to provide a vector 3 as our position and a float as our radius. So transform.position as our position, and radius, for example, we can define the radius here, float, and then we have to provide the radius here. This function will give us an array of colliders that are overlapping with this sphere that we create. We have to use that. We can use var, and they are equal to return value of this function. So now we have our colliders that are overlapping with the sphere. So for every collider, we can say call in the colliders, we have to check that if any collider dot compare tag with player, it means if any collider have the player tag, then we are going to do something. We are going to just set a boolean value that tell us is any player near of us or not. You can call it is player in range. For default is false. And if any players is here, we are going to make it true. So is player in range is equal to true, and then we can return, because I want to finish our function here. And if we didn't find any player, we have to set our is player in range to false. After that, we have to create another function. It is public void interact, and if any player is in range, we have to invoke our event here, our onInteract event, and then our player is able to interact with our object. But we had another condition to interact with our object, and this condition was, and that condition is just when we are looking at the object, then we should be able to interact with that. In our player, as I said, we have a controller script. In this controller script, I want to add another function called interact. So public void interact. In this interact function, at first we will do a raycast, and if our ray hits any interactive object, then we will call the interact function in our interactive object. So for the raycast, we need a vector 3 as our origin and a vector 3 as our direction. So we have to define them. Vector 3 origin is the converted position of the center of our screen to the world point. So we have to use our camera, and then we are going to use screen to world point, and our screen point is new vector 3. For the x-axis, we can say screen dot width divide to 2 because we want the center, and the same for the height. Now we have the origin of our array. After that, we need the direction. Vector3 direction is the forward of our camera. We have all we need to create our raycast, origin, direction, and also we have to output a raycast hit to know the object that our ray hits. So now we have to check if we had any hit and if our hit info dot collider dot compare tag to interactive, then we have to get the component of interactive and then interact with that object. And now we have all we need to have an interactive object. This is our interactive object. All we need is just adding some function to our event. For example, here we can add some object. In the game object, we can set active to false. Okay, this is our player. Everything is fine in the controller, but don't forget to change the tag of our object interactive. And now let's see what we did. Here, this is our player. And then when we are looking to this object and press the interact button, nothing happened. Why? Because we aren't using our interact function anywhere. We have to define our input system that this interact function have to be called when I press on the interact button. So in this awake function, we have to write input action dot player dot interact dot performed. Then we have to call this interact function. And now everything is done and we will be able to interact with that object. Here, this is our player. And when we are near to this object, we have this player in range log. And then when we click on the E button, we have to be able to make this object disabled. And as you see, we did it. And now we can interact with our objects. I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget that you can download all the projects in the GitHub link that I provide in the description. And until the next video, goodbye.